welcome back. Well, today we are looking at JW Broadcasting this month, and we thought we'd do a video on it. The backstory video. I'll give a little bit of my own experience through this. I did a little bit of my own missionary work, self-funded, while I was in the organization. And I always wanted to be a missionary. I became a pioneer, regular pioneer. And I did during the 3 years of regular pioneering. And I did it for about 3.5 years. I wanted to experience what a missionary would experience. And I realized that due to my own circumstances, my family, and so on and so forth, that I would never, in 100 years, be selected as a missionary by jw.org. Never. But they allow members to experience missionary service at their own expense from time to time. So every year, jw.org will send out letters to congregations inviting them to work what they call unassigned territories within a country that you live. So, of course, I live in Canada, and just to pull you up on the map here. Okay, I'm just going to give you a quick little tour here of where I went. Now, where are we here? Kugluktuk. We're going to look at that one. It's right here in Canada. It's way up here, right in this area here, Kugluktuk. And when we went out to Kugluktuk, we did this little town here, Umingatok. Kugluktuk is right there. That's what it looks like. And then we went to Perry Island. We went there. So that was that trip, Kugluktuk. We went out over to, this was the farthest I went, was to Johaven, way up here. And I thought it was a cool name, Johaven. So we went way up there. And then when we did that one, we did Talioke. And we did Kugaruk. We did these places. And we did those in the winter. It was cold. So now, if you're wondering, what does it take to get to a place like that? Well, here we are, right here. So to fly up there in Canada here, it's a 6 hour. It's $2,800. It's $3,000. To get up there, and it takes a whole day. You just don't get up there in 6 hours. You got to wait around. You fly into Yellowknife here. There's no direct flights anymore. You fly into Yellowknife. Hopefully you don't have to do an overnight, and then you fly up to those remote areas. So yeah, it's $2,800. How much does it cost? Well, here's an idea. To book a hotel there at $413 Canadian, and they say it's the best hotel. Well, it's a picture right here. There's only one hotel there. They have a monopoly. Unless you want to stay in a bed and breakfast. And they're all getting, when they rent their houses out, they all get the same money. So that's kind of what this is about. This talk here, Gilead service. It's going to these remote areas. And I was going to show you here... I ended up looking at the map here. Yeah, I ended up going all the way over here. We were doing this over a number of years too, not all at once, but all the way here on this part of the Northwest Territories over here. And this goes all the way up to Inuvik and so on and so forth. And I ended up doing this trip for a number of years, even after I left the Jehovah's Witness religion. And I wrote a little story about our journeys over the years as a Jehovah's Witness, and I'll relate that online one day. But briefly, what we did is I spent a lot of time in this little place called Delaney, and it was a very spiritual place. This is the 7th largest lake in the world, freshwater lake that is. If you Google it, it says 8, but one of the, Russia wanted to be included. They have a big lake that borders the sea, saltwater sea. they wanted to be the seventh, so they got it in if you research it. But when I went to school, Great Bear Lake, and still is, the seventh largest freshwater lake in the world. Why do I say 7? Well, 7's a symbolic number. If we talk about all the lands on the world, there's like 7 seas, 7 continents kind of a thing, 7 land masses, roughly. And seven freshwater lakes. This is the 7th. 7th land. Canada, the North America, 7th land, 7th largest lake, Great Bear Lake. To me, it was symbolic. And so after I left the Jehovah's Witness religion, I had met a man in this town, and I call him the man with the tetragrammaton written in his forethoughts. And he was just that. I wrote a book upon him. And that's the book that I took offline. I haven't published it yet, these books. I wrote a series of books. But part of my travels were Toledo, Norman Wells, Fort Good Hope. And every year I would do this circle for 7 years. I did this circle. And I got to know the whole community up there. And when we were doing the work, the JW part of it, the brother asked, well, what are you doing all this for? And I said, well, we need to put a little book study in every community. And it was after that. He never came back. And he just wanted he wanted to get the initial, like the exploration in. But there's a lot of work to building communities up. And what I realized through all of this is that the governments work closely with these religions. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses weren't getting the funding that they'd like to get in Canada to go up north. There's a lot of community buy-in that has to happen first. And when you go into these communities, what happens, the Jehovah's Witness tends to demonize the local cultures. The local cultures are a little different. They use Catholicism mixed in with their local culture. It's not evil. And Jehovah's Witnesses come in and they demonize it. And that's what happened. That's what I experienced with one of the Jehovah's Witness elders that came up with me. Well, several of them. And they go back and then they do negative reports. Although we were placing 50 books, 50 people wanted studies. There was evidence that people wanted to know something a little bit different. But then I say to myself, why didn't it happen? Why didn't it happen? I don't think Jehovah wanted it to happen. I don't think it was supposed to happen. So then I asked myself, well, why did I do all that? I did it all. I used I showed you guys the other day. I do this kind of stuff. I troubleshoot fire alarm systems. And that's what paid the way up there. But then I ask why. At this stage of the game, I ask myself, why did I do all that? If there is a God, which I believe there is, I believe I was directed to experience all of this through this religion and experience the lack of love, the demonizing of the local people, the fear that was put into the congregation publicly about the people up north because they had a different culture. But you know what this all boils down to, I think, folks? Money. Money. The Canadian government isn't going to subsidize kingdom halls all over the north. They're not going to do that. But other countries are, and I'm going to show you why, and why my experience didn't have success. Because these elders came back with negative reports that went to Bethel, and the money's not there. If the money's not there, they're going to discourage the work up north. That's the only thing I see at this point. Back then, I didn't realize it. I thought I was up against a bad elder body, but this is a lot bigger than that. This is all about money, folks, and I'm going to show you why. Okay, so we're right into JW Broadcasting here. And one of the things you're going to notice with religions, this is with all religions, by the way, but this religion, I do know how to break it apart because I was in it for so long and I did a lot of things. I wanted to be a missionary, but I knew I'd never qualify, so I did it. I did it on my own merits, and I brought lots up with me. But this organization isn't after helping people. Now, this whole presentation is about, if you think about a big business, the big business has a lot of money, and we're going to show that in a bit, how much money this business has and how much they're hiding and how much they spend on missionary service. They don't spend a lot, $242 million on missionary work for an organization of this caliber. That's peanuts. This organization is raking in $950 million a year, according to their statistics. They're pulling that in every year from you guys. And they're spending $240 million of it on missionary service, so they say. And then they're spending some on humanitarian service, which we're going to look at, and they don't talk about that. They don't talk about the numbers they spent, and they're very non-transparent. In fact, most religions are, but some religions, like the Mormons, donated $1 billion just to poverty, just to some other organization that looks after the poor. They gave them $1 million. $1 billion, not a million, $1 billion. There's estimates that this organization, Jehovah's Witnesses, have sitting in the kettle $200 billion, maybe into the trillions, especially when you look at all the assets that they own in the world. This is a very, very wealthy organization, and they have to spend a little bit on missionary work. And I'm going to show you how they make every country work for them. Like up here in Canada, if they really wanted to help people, there's a ton of work right in our own country, right here. But there's reasons why people don't want to go up to the north, where the snow is. Not here in Canada. And I'm going to show you why. Now, this whole missionary, we're going to get into a little bit of it, but it's all about the workers. This is your elite workers, the missionaries. You're putting your money into them. As you can see, it cost big bucks to start flying these guys places. Now, they were bragging about going 1,600 kilometers flying somewhere. And that's nothing. We were flying 1,900 kilometers right here in Canada, just to one location. These are big countries when you get into Canada and some of the north. It's huge, and it's very, very costly. So these guys choose cheaper routes. They choose cheaper countries, and they choose locations that you're going to get missionaries that want to go to. So let's face it, most of the missionaries in JW.org are in snow-ridden countries. New York gets snow, all across the northern states get snow. Well, this year, we're getting snow down even in the mid-states. So missionary service looks pretty inviting. And we're going to look at why. And this is they actually have a couple of these broadcasts this month. This is one, and they're highlighting one of the places where they're going to send their missionaries. Let's take a look at it.
Well, that was very enjoyable, wasn't it?
We hope you enjoyed Part 1. Parts 2 and 3 will be available on jw.org later this month. Our postcard for this month is from Uruguay. Located between Argentina and Brazil, Uruguay has beautiful coastlines along the Atlantic Ocean and rolling hills in its interior. The pristine beaches of Punta del Este is a popular tourist destination. Several rivers in the country, such as the Rio Negro and the Rio de la Plata, create stunning landscapes and make the soil fertile. These breathtaking views provide a picturesque backdrop for preaching the good news. Uruguay currently has 149 congregations preaching in 5 different languages, including Uruguayan Sign Language and Portuñol, a pidgin language composed of Spanish and Portuguese. Like the fertile, productive fields where they preach, the harvest in the ministry is great, as the 12,000 publishers average 11,000 Bible studies per month. In the 1960s, missionaries used rafts to traverse the Sabayati River in order to reach remote territories, and the tradition continues to this day. Trucks loaded with carts are ferried across the river so that publishers can witness in the local town squares. After a long day of preaching, brothers and sisters enjoy relaxing around campfires, singing, and enjoying mate, a traditional herbal drink made with yerba that pairs well with tortas fritas or fried cakes. the 30 publishers of the Sabayati congregation, and all the brothers and sisters in Uruguay send their love and greetings to the worldwide brotherhood. From the
Okay, let's just look in here a little bit. Okay, let's go back. I want to look at that town right here. Okay, you notice the town here? This is a little congregation of about 30 people. This reminds me, we spent 3 months down in Playa del Carmen, right off the Cancun side of Mexico, and it was down a bit. And that was back in the 90s. This reminds me what it was like. Some people, if you look in the background there, some people didn't even have houses, tarps, boxed. So the kingdom halls are very, well, you don't need insulation, of course. They're just little tin buildings. Back in Cancun, it was even worse. But little buildings, sometimes they make them out of cinder block, plastic chairs. They don't need much. They don't put much in them because of theft. And you get the watchtower coming into a little area. They're going to probably pull in some internet here and get these people trained on internet. This is going to be exciting for all these people living in this neighborhood to want to join up. And lots of these places have air conditioning. You don't have air conditioning out here. You're sweating her. And people come into the Kingdom Hall just for the air conditioning. And this is how Watchtower gets into these little areas. So as you could see, there was there's no snow, no ice. It's if we do the research on Uruguay, it's 18%, 20% cheaper than the U.S. It's cheaper to live down there. The country's good. I did a little research on the country, and they're on the upper class, and they're a growing country. The laws are good. The laws are amicable for Jehovah's Witnesses. It's a little country. It's only 3 million people. And so here they can get in, and they have a report where they want to get into about 1 million people that are living in the remote areas. And we've seen that in this little video with the trucks and so forth going there with their literature. There's about 1 million people that are blacks. Most of this little country is whites. And so they're going into the black culture, sending white people in. What happens? Well, when I took my family to Antigua to work on the Bethel, it was all blacks. And we went to the congregation. My daughter had long blonde hair and we're all white. And the children were just circling the white people. And they get a lot of a lot of self-esteem, a lot of attention. So you can imagine the missionaries going down there and get a lot of attention. This is exciting for the missionaries to go to these kinds of countries, and it's all paid. No one has to service fire alarms all night and do preaching all day. You don't have to do that there. Not like what we had to do. This is all paid by the society. But they don't get a wage. No one gets a wage in this organization. But they make it exciting, and this is what you have to look forward to. So we're going to move on. So we're just at the beginning here. We're just going to look at a few points see how they're pitching this to their missionaries.
Well, we're excited for you. And this is the culmination of 5 months of hard work on your part. And we want to say that we are proud of each and every one of you. And we love you. And we know that you're going to do a tremendous amount of good in your assignments. Now, unlike the chair...
So he talks,
Psalm 127,
typical stuff. This guy talks about
Psalm, we'll
Nehemiah
verse
building, how Nehemiah is... And they give these different talks. So this guy gives a talk on Nehemiah on building. And you can imagine the governing body sitting back in the room, okay, how are we going to pitch this year for the Gilead class? You see, the Gilead class, that's their supreme workers. They're all these couples out there, and it's all couples this year. And mostly they want couples to go in. And so this year, how are we going to pitch this? Well, we're going into a country, and if you do the search on Uruguay, there is a problem there. And one of the problems there is with women. They're actually murdering women. They call it femicide. They have something against women. So that's a problem there. So they're bringing in these couples. They wouldn't want single sisters, single brothers necessarily. And this guy's giving a talk, and it's easy, folks. You can use the Bible to talk about whatever you want. They do a lot of fill-in. They make stories out of one or two little scriptures. I'll show you that in a couple talks down. But this guy uses Nehemiah, and it's about building. And you see, you're telling your Gilead, we're sending you guys to different countries. You got to build the congregations. They're just prepping them for what they have to do, because they own them. They own these missionaries. And then the next talk by this guy, I'll let you hear him for a bit here.
There are three. Step 1, love of God. Step 2, love of neighbor. And step 3, love of self. And of course, we're not talking about the selfish, self-centered attitude that people have today.
So they talk about love.
Because according to the law of the Christ,
they talk about love of, there's three loves: love of self, love of neighbor, love of God. Now, that's a fair, let's just go back to that chart there. I'm going to pause it there. Now, that's an easy thing to talk about and anybody should be talking about love. And now, from this standpoint of view, Uruguay, Watchtower is going to the Uruguay government, hey, we're going to send missionaries into your country. What are you going to do? We start helping people. Well, check our website out. Here's what we instruct our missionaries to do. So you're a government official in Uruguay. You're looking in on this. Oh, love of God, this is a good religion. We can fund them. We'll give them charity status in our country. They're going to help our country out. We have a problem with femicide, women being killed. This group's going to help us out. I'm going to show you later, because they talk about women, all about women. They made all this stuff about women, and there's no scripture supporting it. But I know why they have to do it, because of the problem in the country, and they want charity status, they want funding. So love of self, they miss out on the love of neighbor. Love of neighbor to them is preaching. Governments are going to miss that. They show humanitarian needs. I'm going to show you on the website what they're going to show the governments. Let's carry on here. This guy talks about it. Now the next guy, this guy, let's see what he talks about. I forget what he talks about. Let's play him for a bit here.
Well, that was worthwhile, wasn't it? Beautiful presentation.
No, it wasn't worthwhile.
Now, Brother David Ionelli, who's a member of the writing staff, is going to speak to us on the theme, Never Forget What Jehovah Remembers.
There's something Jehovah remembers that we do well never to forget. It involves the way he views us and treats us right now. And all of us, including you who are graduating from Gilead today, do well never to forget it. Okay,
so this is such an easy one. Never forget it. Never forget it. Who is Jehovah? Remember, Jehovah equals Watchtower. So the Gilead members, they're owned. They're no longer there, and they agree with that. They believe. You see how they pitch it is you're bought by Jehovah. Jehovah bought you, and Jehovah will look after you. And the Watchtower will. They have trillions of dollars. They have billions of dollars. We know that for sure. And 242 million for missionaries is a drop in the bucket. It's nothing. So they own these missionaries. They're looking after them. They're flying them down there. They've just done 5 months worth of training. Jehovah owns you. Watchtower owns you. And don't you forget it. That's what this talks about. That's all it's about. Don't screw with us. If you screw with us, you're screwing with Jehovah. You see the brainwashing? That's how it works.
What is it? Well, open your Bible, please, to Psalm 103.
Yeah, we could have let him play there a bit. So this guy talks and talks about how Jehovah owns us. Now, this guy here, let's see what he says.
In addition to the teaching staff, he was serving in Czechia, the Czech Republic, before he came here. I guess it was this year, was it, Jeremy? You came here? Anyway, he's going to speak to us on the theme, May Jehovah Know.
May the Watchtower know.
He was buried with the kings, but he was not a king. He lived 130 years, but perhaps for the first 90 years of his life, there is nothing recorded what he achieved. And one major event that was recorded, he had to keep secret without others knowing for about 6 years.
Okay, so this is about secrecy. And the sisters, there's just secret things that happen. This is a message, right? You're sending couples in. Now, your husband's an elder. He's going to run the congregation. He's Gilead, top of the line. You're getting top of the line people in there running the place. And what happens is they send him into a congregation and they sit there as a bystander for about 3 months. They don't do any appointments and they just explore, judging, monitoring, and they're analyzing how they're going to turn this congregation around, make things happen. And different people have different personalities. There's some really nice missionaries. Remember, these are Class A workers for the governing body. They are Class A. They're going to have nice personalities. They're going to be loving and they're going to be gracious. And this is how they're going to pull people in. That's how they got to use the right people. And when you have 8.5 million people, which I don't believe they do, I think that's exaggerated, but they have a lot of selection. So now this guy talks about secrecy and not knowing everything and sticking to your assignment. Now, for 6 years, he talks about an assignment, and this is all about the Gilead people sticking to their assignment. That's what this talk's all about. I'm going to paste all this stuff, so if you guys want to listen to it, you can.
Jehoiada means, may Jehovah know.
It's what it's
How
like.
fitting. May Jehovah know all your loyal acts,
It's all
seen
about
and unseen,
loyalty to the
and your
Watchtower.
Father.
You see,
time and close to a decade
they don't want to
we've had
put.
an- but we know
I'm going to go
her
back here. This
husband-
guy's a
Loyal
good talk.
acts, seen and unseen.
But they don't want to put a pile of money into these missionaries and have them quit. So they have to pull talks out. And you can pull any talk out of the Bible, out of your hat with that Bible. But these guys have to pound into this audience loyalty. We spent a pile of money. You guys were in Bethel here for 5 months. We fed and looked after you. Maybe some of them were in Bethel. It's hard to say. But Watchtower owns these people. And now this next talk is about women. So if you think about the problems in Uruguay with women, they have to, Uruguay government's coming in, oh, these guys are going to help us with women. Listen to this talk.
know her name, but we know her husband. He was a hard-working fisherman, outspoken apostle, writer of 2 Bible books, and the only person besides Jesus to walk on water. Yeah, we know Peter. But sometimes we forget his wife. What was Peter's wife like? What were they like as a married couple? And what can they teach you 24 married couples? This is the first time in close to a decade we've had an entire class of only married couples. Thus, we've chosen Peter and his wife so that you can learn specific lessons that you can bring to your places of assignment, but especially to strengthen your marriages as you apply this and you serve together side by side. Let's begin by reading Mark chapter 1. Mark chapter 1, verse 16. While walking alongside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon, that's Jesus, saw Simon and Simon's brother Andrew casting their nets into the sea, for they were fishermen. Peter's a fisherman. He brings home the fish. His wife cooks the fish. And if she doesn't cook the fish, she sells the fish. Like a capable Proverbs 31 wife, brings home the money. That helps support the house. It allows Peter to handle his responsibilities. All is well. A great couple, working side by side together. However, life changes suddenly. Verse 17 and 18. So Jesus said to them,
Okay. This is typical Watchtower. They build big stories out of nothing. I opened up the Bible to Mark 1. You can open it up, Mark 1. He reads only 3 scriptures. It mentioned women once, and I have to do more research, and I'm not going to, because it's not even about anything he's talking about here. And if you read the Bible and you're trying to get something out of this book that they have, that's going to exalt women, I don't even have that book here, it's quite difficult to find this. And you actually have to make up some stories. Now, he makes up the story here that Peter's a fisherman. Well, we know Peter's a fisherman, but it doesn't say anything about what his wife did, that his wife cooked the fish or went to the market. At least I couldn't find it. And if you can find it, put it in the comments and educate me a bit. But I didn't see it. Peter's a fisherman. I could be a fisherman and cook my own fish, hang my own fish up to dry, however I want to process my fish. I might sell my own fish in the market. Or maybe I go fishing and I have my guy at the dock waiting and I just dump my fish into his truck and it's already sold. My wife has nothing to do with it. And when I come home, my wife is cooking potatoes because we're so sick of fish. I just told my own story. He's telling his own story. This is what Watchtower does. They just tell stories. And let's listen to him a little further.
Come after me, and I will make you fishers of men. And at once they abandoned their nets and followed him. In faith, Peter abandons his fishing business and follows Jesus. What did she think about that? Did she expect that? Did she become insecure and uncertain now about the future?
You see, he's drawing suppositions that are not in the Bible. It doesn't mention anything about this. He's just supposing. We know Peter was married. He's going on and on about all this stuff. He doesn't know. Maybe she was on the boat with Peter. That's Watchtower. I don't want to watch a lot more of this guy because he's just made up a big story. It's just another big Watchtower lie, in my opinion. And let's just carry forth. I think he's kind of the last speaker here. He kind of goes on and talks about this fishing story. You guys read the scripture, Mark 1. He's using 3 scriptures there. And I don't get it. I don't see it. It's just a big story. It's not even putting scriptures up on the screen anymore. Because there's no scriptures on women doing what he's saying in the Bible. You see, the Bible is written, it's more kind of written around men. And if you go back a couple of thousand years, when the Bible was written, or 4,000 or 5,000 years when the Hebrews had it, it was a man's world. Always was a man's world. And all the way up until the time that we're basically living in now. Women just recently got voting rights here in our own country. So now they're trying to make this religion look like it's about women. So you got to look at the reason. Why is the governing body putting this forth? Well, when Uruguay looks in on this, hey, there's a religion that's going to help the woman problem in our country. And they're going to go right into the million people that are the black part of our country, and they're going to help with women. So, and they might. You see, the religion might do that, and that's how they get charity status. It's a business. So this is what they're showing their Gilead class. This is video number 1, and I don't think we're going to cover much more in all this. We already looked at the landscape. It's beautiful. Look at the beaches. Like, who wouldn't want to go there? Like, there's no way I'm going up to northern Canada, and we found that. I was trying to get brothers left and right. I had to pay brothers to come up with me. And they wouldn't come because they're all going to Mexico, where the sun was greater. The sun's always greater down there, and look at it. Who would want to be up in New York where there's snow on the ground every other day and the wind's blowing? It's beautiful down there, especially if you know a little bit of Spanish. I think it's Spanish. But anyways, that's enough for now. So this is just some of the facts on Uruguay. I do a little bit of the research. It's all there. 3.4 million people. It's not a big country. They have a lot of witnesses per population. So this makes me question, why are we sending missionaries down there? Like up here in Canada, it's 1 out of 324 is our ratio. But yet all these people in northern Canada don't get covered. They come back. The elders have come back and called them drunks and alcoholics, and don't go there. He said he had to hide in his room. Here's Uruguay, sharing the good news in isolated territories of Argentina and Uruguay. And it's kind of a little central place, They can reach more of Africa. You see, when there's less internet, they're going to have lots of recruits. It's a good business decision. This was just how much they're spending on missionary work. Jehovah's Witnesses spent $242 million. And this is right off their site, providing relief amid wars and reports of wars. And they'll do that, but this doesn't cost much on the big scheme of things. This is a $1 trillion company. They're sitting on excesses amounts of cash. How do Jehovah's Witnesses use donations? Well, it's all preaching, all printing, all propagating their religion, building facilities, a huge real estate company, lots of administration, lots of lawyers, lots of accountants. And then we have our preaching. That's where we want people to really focus on this Gilead class. We're sending out all these missionaries. This is what they want to focus on. And teaching, this is the money's coming in, $920 million a year. And you got to do something with this money, or you're not going to have you're not going to have a business. Disaster relief. You notice they just show bottled water down there, and that's pretty much all that is pallets of bottled water. A lot of these countries, as long as you have fresh water, that's a big thing. And again, the Mormons dropped $1 billion to the food bank to actually feed the poor. The Catholics feed the poor. Jehovah's Witnesses do not. They do not feed homeless, do not feed the poor. Not unless you're out there and you're going to go buy a homeless guy a meal. I've never seen them encourage that. Never. So, but there's proper ways to help the poor, and not necessarily going out there working through organizations that know how to do it. Now, much of the funding Witnesses is primarily by members. There's no tithing, although they do ask for $10 a month from the congregations per person. In 2001, Newsday listed the Watchtower as one of New York's 40 richest corporations. Now, New York is huge. To be among the top 50 richest corporations with revenues exceeding $950 million a year. So they have to do something with that money. Now, then they print an article, and I did a little more research. Does God want you to be rich? They actually justified it here. They didn't use the one scripture I thought they would use. I'll pin this article. But they said there's a time to get rich. They talked about King Solomon. There's a time to get rich. I just thought this was bizarre. Of course, they say don't chase riches, but this is an easy one. When I research riches, this is an easy one. I just punch in my Bible to a rich. Hebrews 13:5 says, "Keep your life free from the love of money and be content with what you have." Like there it is, folks. There it is. You don't have to go much further. It talks all about godliness and riches. Talked about how Jesus viewed riches. Jesus didn't view real estate. What the Watchtower is doing is not what Jesus talked about. He says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in the heaven, where neither moth or rust destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal." You see, the thieves are always breaking into the kingdom halls to steal. In some of these countries, you could get away without much, with just a roof, kind of a roof. Everyone brings their lawn chair. Someone gets up and talks from the Bible. You don't need much. But the Watchtower, they need to put a lot of security up. They want to provide internet, air conditioning, because that's going to pull people in to their organization. I've seen this. I worked in these countries, and I see what the Watchtower does. And it's brilliant. It is a brilliant way of pulling people in. Now, Proverbs talks about the blessings the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. Well, the Watchtower is using their money now in legal bills, but they got a lot of money. They have a lot of money. But we'll soon see what happens. Some of these child CSA cases, they're having to pay out $35 million. And if the courts allow that to go through, you see the only reason that one in Montana didn't go through for $35 million is because JW.org hid behind the clergy penitent privilege. And that's not in the Bible, folks. I couldn't find that in the Bible. Let's put it in and see if it's in there. Okay, I plugged clergy penitent into my little Bible tool here. It's quite interesting what came up. James 5:16, "Therefore confess your sins to one another, pray for one another, that you may be healed." Timothy says there is one God, one mediator, Christ Jesus, not the Pope. not the elders, not a body of elders. You don't need to have that. 1 Corinthians says all this is from God, who through Christ reconciled us to himself, not through a pope or a priest. You don't have to go and sit in that little box and talk to that priest every month. It's nonsense. You can go right to Christ. You can go right to God yourself. So here's one. Proverbs 28:13. Whoever conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. And I think of all the hidden CSA, child sex abuse cases within JW.org. They conceal these things. Well, they seem to have a lot of money. They seem to be prospering. So my question is, if there's two forces out there, two forces, would those forces be able to finance their spokesmen on earth? Think about that one. Who's financing really from a spiritual realm Jehovah's Witnesses? It's a good question because they're concealing a lot of badness. And what the governments don't know is when they get these guys into the country and they subsidize them, soon they're going to have issues with the shunning policy, the concealing of CSA. And what about the blood transfusions? That's a doctrine that's not based on the Bible. People are going to start losing lives in these countries. You see, governments look at these broadcasts and they don't see the real picture. So they have to look online if they're smart and get a picture from some of us who have been there, who have done it, and who have worked our way out. So folks, I hope I helped you today, and thanks for your attention. And until next time, keep living your life with love. Bye for now.